Namaste, Laura. Thank you for talking to us. So I wanted to you to talk a little bit about your work with veterans, you know, with yoga. Can you talk about that?
Sure, so when I don't have strawberry in my teeth, which I just ate.
You don't.
But I want to start cleaning my teeth right now. Okay, I'll tell you how it started. As you know, I've been a yoga teacher for decades and decades, and completely coincidentally and suddenly I had to do open heart surgery about 10 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was, for somebody as athletic as I've always been, it was wildly disturbing. Sometimes, you know, I remember waking up in ICU, and I remember being strolling in to do the open heart surgery. I'm not so sure I would have made it if it wasn't for pranayama, and if it wasn't for my yoga work for all these decades. There was complications. My heart quit beating a couple times. You're very aware when you know, I don't believe in death, but if I did believe in death, you're very aware when you go over to the other side. And if you've got a real deep yoga practice, it really helps you make the decisions you need to make when you could go to the next phase or you could stay here. During my recovery, I started reading much more than I would normally have time for, and the horror that was going on with the vets coming back from Iraq, as we are all aware of, is heartbreaking. Because there is nothing psychosomatic about post-trauma stress disorder. There is nothing. The nightmares are overwhelming. The memories, the flashbacks, I know because I had them all from the open heart surgery. And I think because I was in their position, I just had such compassion and such a desire to heal them. But you know, it's not that I'm angelic in any way. It's just that I knew in healing them, I could heal myself. I know that from teaching. When you heal your students, ultimately it's yourself you're healing. So I started working with these guys, and God, it was precious. You know, these guys have physical injuries. As you said yesterday, they've lost limbs. But most tragic is how screwed up their minds
emotional,
are. It just what they've seen. It's beyond our imagination, and I have to say to these guys all the time, you know, I understand 5% of what you're feeling, because I didn't have my best friend blown to smithereens as they were standing next, or God forbid, trying to save you. Your best friend is blown to smithereens, or any of this. So at this point, this work I'm doing with the vets, it makes more sense than working with anybody else.
Definitely. And I think yoga comes in as a tool of like really washing off all those memories, really letting go and just healing them. You know, it's like...
Yeah, the belief system in yoga, and I believe it, is that our body holds memories cellularly. And it's part of the idea of the tapas, the heat we create, like we just did in this room. It's, you know, in the scriptures, that heat is very cleansing. It moves out not only, of course, physical toxins, etc., which, you know, that's great, but God, emotionally, there's some samskara that's left that just haunts you at night, and also it just it depresses you.
Well, my next question, I don't think makes sense now, because
I
was going to say, what do you like most about teaching, but I think you already answered, you know, but...
I think as a teacher, and I'm sure you've experienced the same, because I know you've taught for 20 or 30 years, I think as a teacher, as we continue to teach, what we like most about teaching changes as we grow and mature and learn from our students.
It's true.
So what do you like most about teaching?
Well, you know, I like the exchange, you know, it's just like, and how much I am present when I'm doing it.
I didn't even think of that. That is,
you know, I forget
everything.
There's nothing, how tired I am, if my day was, you know, not that good, or what's coming up next, you know, I'm really fully present. And it's such an exercise, you know.
Imagine had you just gone through, you know, something that almost killed you, and has left scars all over your body. When you're accustomed to being athletically perfect, imagine how much you would want to be able to stay present.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
difficult it is because you're
Yeah.
constantly being pulled into these memories.
Yeah.
So this is probably another reason that I had never even thought of why I'm working with vets. Because you've got to stay so present with these
Yeah.
guys. You can't talk about the big toe and triangle. They don't give a hell about the big toe and triangle. They don't care if it's an internal or an external rotation in the back leg. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
You got to be there, and you got to be feeling what they're feeling emotionally, and that's what you address.
Yeah.
So it's just a whole different dimension of what we've been trained to do.
Yeah.
And we've got to almost just intuit it.
But I think for you, coming from a school like Yoga Works too, is just like really the next level of practice. It's going beyond the body and really touching yoga in a much deeper level.
Yeah.
That probably normally you wouldn't experience that in a regular class.
It
with
depends on your
people.
teacher.
Yeah.
It really does. I know. I've taught here. I'm not teaching here right now, but I've taught here since it opened. And there's a certain point as a teacher, rotation, shoulders, lower belly, it all comes so naturally that you get to bring him into into the philosophy of the yoga by making constant analogies between what their body's doing and what that might spark in terms of the philosophy practice. So but you see, what's I don't think is fair is to expect that of younger teachers. Because they're so confused trying to remember what the hell the front leg is doing.
Yeah.
So, I think for studio owners to expect teachers that haven't been teaching for at least 15 years to be able to constantly instill the spirituality.
Well, it's the experience that really, counts. And it takes time, like you said. It takes a little more than one teacher training to get it,
Yeah, because these newer teachers, they get up and they're still fumbling with their words.
Yes.
Let alone being able to just give these instructions, physical instructions automatically, so really the teacher can be in the more spiritual realms of the pose and begin to instill that into her teaching. Yeah. And that kept me interested for an extra 10 years. Yeah. But then once I did this surgery,
your values changed, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you really kissed death there.
Oh yeah.
And to come back to life, it's almost like you having to recreate yourself.
That my girlfriend said that. She said what you went through completely dissembles the ego, and now on the other side of having made it through that surgery, you rebuild. And in my case, I just rebuilt it a different way. Yeah.
And in a beautiful way, I should say, because it takes a lot of courage to work with those guys too, because it's a lot. You're taking in their experience and processing them, and giving them back something else that I don't think you even know yet. But
perhaps not, because I'm thinking of the kind of courage it took to get through that surgery without, just frightening my family. I couldn't be crying and carrying on because my family was so frightened. In terms of courage to teach these men and women, God, it's almost just inherent.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I'm drawing on them, and I never got to do that with my students. I never could draw on their energy.
Yeah.
And I go into that room, and I can almost draw on their energy.
Yeah.
So it's a better exchange, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
This idea of exchanging, that's what you love about the teaching. I feel more like now there's an exchange. Before, when I've taught for all these years, I felt like they were just completely draining me.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Beautiful.
Pleasure.
Namaste.
Namaste.
You should go back to Brazil, right? You were there before, so here's an invitation officially for you to come back.
So long we can go to Brazil, so I'm there.
Thank you.